We begin today the Gemara on Daf Mem Ches, right at the beginning of the Daf. It said in the Mishnah, after it said in general that the Kachim are shechted in the Azara on the Tzafin side, then it lists different cases of Karbanis Kachim, and it starts with Par V'Soyer Shel Yom HaKippurim Cholo, the bull and the goat that's brought in Yom Kippur. So the question is, Mechdi, let's see, Tzafin Ba'iliksiv. Where does the Torah write explicitly that the carbon should be shechted on the tzafin? That's regarding the carbon naila. As the Gemara will soon quote the pasuk, it says v'shachat toisa yerech hamizbeach tzafayna, and it says specifically by the oila. If so, nisni oila bereisha. So let it say in the Mishnah oila first. Why does it say the parvasar of Yom Kippur first in this list? That's the Gemara chatos. It's because here the part on the side is a chatos. I did also midrasha. Since this is something that you learn from a drasha, it's learned from a hekesh. The Gemara is going to bring soon that it says b'makim asher tishchat ha'ila tishchat chatos. So because it's a drasha chavivele, so the Tana it's more beloved to him to say something that the Chachamim darshan. The Gemara, okay, that's a drasha, but v'nisni chatois achetzainis. Why are we saying the chatos of once a year in Yom Kippur, not as common? Why not speak about a chatos that's brought and the blood is sprayed on the outside mizbeach, which is much more common? Answers the Gemara, I did the nichnas damal of naiv lefnim, because the bloods of Yom Kippur carbon are brought inside the kodesh hakadoshim chavivale. So that's also another reason why it's beloved to mention first this carbon that the blood is brought inside the kodesh hakadoshim. Okay, so that's the order of the Mishnah why this comes first. Here the Gemara is going to go through the source in the pasuk and all the Kabbalas we're speaking about here that has to be the shechita b'tzafain. And as the rule is regarding kachim, it's not enough to have one source to say that it has to be done b'tzafin. That would be only that it's a mitzvah l'chatchila, but you have to have also a second pasuk to say that it's ma'akiv. So now, where does the pasuk say regarding the oila that has to be shechted on the tzafin? Because the pasuk says v'shachat toisa yerech hamizbeach tzafayna. So that's the tzafin side. Okay, now says the Gemara, Ashkechon ben tzoyer. That pasuk v'shachat toisa is speaking about only regarding a lamb that you shech. That's how that parsha begins. It's speaking about a lamb. However, ben bakar minolan. How do you know if it's large livestock that they also are brought in as a carbon? Oila should be shechted on the tzafin side of the mizbeach. Answers the Gemara, because Omakra, in this parsha, where the Torah explicitly says tzafin, it starts as follows: Ve'im minatzayin. So it says with a vav. Therefore I say vav meisef al inyan rishon. So this vav is adding to what it said in the parsha before. Now what did it say in the parsha before? There it speaks about the ben bakar, the large livestock. And therefore I say v'yilmod elyon mitachten. I learn out the parsha before that speaks about a ben bakar from what it says in the parsha afterwards when it speaks about the tzayin. Just like by the tzayin, the Torah says tzafayin. So I learned to the parsha before as well that the ben bakar by a carbon oil has to be shechted and the tzafin. Says the Gemara, hanich lamandama lemeiden. This source is good according to the opinion that says that we learn out this way. Because what's unique over here is, usually when you have this kind of connection, ve'im, I learn out from the parsha before to the parsha after. Here we're doing the opposite. We're learning out from the parsha after, to the parsha before that speaks about Ben Bakar. So the Gemara says, yeah, there's one opinion that says that we do that. But there's another opinion that says that we don't learn out the halacha from the parsha after to the parsha before. So the what is our source? That when you shech the Ben Bakar for a oila, that has to be on the tzafain. And here the Gemara brings the source where we see there's a machlekes about this. Tanya, because we have a similar thing in a braisa, a machlekes when there's this vav, ve'im nefesh ve'gaimer. What is this pasuk ve'im nefesh speaking about? So this is by the carbon asham. The Torah writes first the carbon of a asham le'ilois, a person that was mile and hektish, and he has to bring a carbon asham. Then the next parsha it says ve'im nefesh. It speaks about a asham which is called asham toli. When a person is bringing a carbon asham in a case where he's not sure if he has to bring a chatas or not, there's a doubt, exactly. When a person is sitting and he's in front of him, there's fats, forbidden fats and permitted fats, and he ate from one of them and he's not sure what he ate from, and then he has to bring a carbon asham toli. Okay, so now again, the first parsha is asham eilais, and the second parsha is the asham toli. So what we learn from this is, because it says evolve, l'chayiv al safik mi'ilois asham taloi, that not only in the parsha where it speaks about the asham taloi, where there it's speaking about a case of forbidden fats, that you bring a regular carbon chatas for it, So just like that's true in that parsha, I connect it to the parsha before. I learn out from the Tachton to the Elyon to say that by Me'ilah as well, if a person had two items in front of him and he used one of them and he's not sure one of them was from Hekdesh and he doesn't know which one he used, so then he's going to have to bring a carbon Asham Taloi for Me'ilah as well. Divrei Rabbi Akiva. So I see that Rabbi Akiva's opinion is that I could learn out through the Vav from the next parsha to the parsha before. However, the Chachamim Paitre, and Chachamim say, no, you potter by the Asham Me'ilis. If there's a suffix, if you were mile, there's no carbon Asham for this. So, my labba, Kamiflagi, it would seem that this is what they're arguing about. Mar Sovar Lemedin. Rabbi Akiva says, I learned from the parsha below to the parsha before. But in Mar Sovar Lemedin, the Chachamim say you don't learn out from the parsha below to the parsha before. So, our question over here is regarding the Ben Abakar, could you learn it out from the Tzayin that it says in the parsha later with that Vav? It's a machlaikis. Okay, but the Gemara says, no, it's actually not a machlaikis. Over here, the explanation of Chachamim and Rabbi Akiva's argument is something else. Rav Papa says the Kula Alma Lemeidin. We can say that really everybody agrees when you have that vav between two parshas, you could learn out from the later parsha to the earlier parsha. In the time of the Rabbanan, the reason why the Rabbanan there say that by Me'ilah, there's no concept of suffix when there's a doubt. You don't bring a Asham Toli for Me'ilah. The reason is because Nemakan mitzvahs. In the parsha of Asham Toloi, the Torah uses the expression mitzvahs. It says, Nefesh kisechta v'asa achas mikol mitzvahs Hashem. So he had mitzvahs, a certain aveda that is, that he did, and there's a doubt about it. And then v'nama b'chatas chaylev mitzvahs. By the regular kind of chatas, which the Gemara always refers to as chatas chaylev, it also uses the term mitzvahs. And therefore I compare them in the Gzeir Shava. The carbon chatas is only brought when it's an aveda that for b'mezid, there would be kares. So too, the whole concept of Asham Toloi that you bring when you're in doubt whether you did the Aveda is only for which Aveda? Something that b'mezid that would be Kodesh. And that does not include Me'ilah. By Me'ilah b'mezid there is no Kodesh. So therefore, the Chachamim said that we follow this Gzeir Shava that there's no carbon for Me'ilah in a case of a doubt. Rashi here brings that the concept of a carbon Asham Toloi really, it doesn't save you from bringing a carbon chatas. Once the person found out that he did averi, he has to bring the carbon chatas. So why is he bringing a carbon asham tali in between? To save the person from yisurim that he did not bring the kapara yet, and maybe he did the averi, so that he would get an einish. So to save him from the yisurim, the Eibush says, bring a carbon asham tali that there will be no reason for any einish. Okay, now Rabbi Akiva, why does he say that there is a concept of Asham Toloi even from the Ilis as well? We have this Gzeir Shava. So what does he do with the Gzeir Shava? So the Gemara says, Akiva says, we learn the Gzeir Shava, but only partially. I say like this, just like by carbon chatas, where it says the word mitzvahs. What kind of carbon chatas are we talking about? A set carbon, that it's the same for anybody. Avkam bekvua, here as well, we're talking about a aveda where there's a set carbon chatas for this. And that includes Me'ilah as well. By Me'ilah, there's a set carbon that's brought for it, the set Asham that's brought for it. So therefore, Me'ilah also, there's halacha of Asham Tali. The Tumas Mikdash v'Kadasha. The only thing that we will exclude from this is not Me'ilahs. We'll exclude from this the case of a person that was Tameh and he went into the Beis HaMikdash or ate from Kachin. What's the halacha there? The Eilu v'Yeritu. Over here, he doesn't bring always the same carbon. It depends if he's rich or poor. Rich, you bring an animal. If you're poor, you bring a bird or even flour. So therefore, that's a different kind of carbon chatas. And over there's no Asham Tali. So Rabbi Akiva learns this Gzeir Shava partially. Says the Gemara, but the Rabbanan will respond to that. En Gzeir Shava lemechza. You don't learn Gzeir Shava halfway. That's the rule. If you have Gzeir Shava, you have to learn it completely. So you also have to learn the point that it has to be a kind of aveda that there's kares. Can't just learn this detail that it has to be a set carbon chatos. What happened to that detail of kares as well? Everything is included in the Gzeir Shava. You don't learn halfway. So the Gemara asks us, so how does Rabbi Akiva answer? Rabbi Akiva nami en Gzeir Shava lemechza. There's no half Gzeir Shava, so why is he only learning one detail about this? So the Gemara and the Chanami. Rabbi Akiva also holds that en Gzeir Shava lemechza, but v'hacha b'haka miflagi. Here is what they're arguing about. Everybody holds of this Gzeir Shava, but now we go back to the hekesh that we mentioned before. Rabbi Akiva says that because there's also the hekesh v'im nefesh ksiv, you have that vav that connects the parsha of Asham Talui to the parsha of Asham Me'ilos that it says before, so therefore I say Vav Ma'asav Al Inyan Ishain. The Vav is adding and connecting the two to say that even though usually I would say En Gzeir Shava Lamechze, but over here this Hekesh is teaching me that I can't apply the Gzeir Shava for all the details, and therefore the Asham Talui is applied to Asham Me'ilos. But Rabbanan Nami, now according to Rabbanan as well, we just said before, everybody agrees to this Hekesh. Everybody agrees that you learn from the later parsha to the parsha before. So according to the Rabbanan Nami Haksiv Im Nefesh, it says this pasuk Vim Nefesh, so that should go against the Gzeir Shava to say that I can't learn the Gzeir Shava fully, and I have to apply this Hekesh that by Asham Me'ilos there's going to be the din of Asham Tali as well. So now the Gemara says, now this brings us to a new point. Maybe we should say, Leime ba'haka miflagi. It would seem now that the machlokes of Rabbi Akiva and the Chachamim is in the following point. The Marsa of our Hekesh Adif. Rabbi Akiva holds, when you have this contradiction between a Gzeir Shava and a Hekesh, so we follow the Hekesh. A Hekesh has a stronger limud than a Gzeir Shava. And therefore here, the Gzeir Shava says that there should be no din of Asham Toloi by Me'ilas, because we have that full Gzeir Shava of mitzvahs that has to be like the regular Karban Chatas where there's Kares. That excludes Me'ilas, where there's no Kares. On the other hand, you have the Hekesh that says to compare to Me'ilas. So Rabbi Akiva says Hekesh is stronger than Gzeir Shava. But Umar Sava, the Chacham's opinion is Gzeir Shava, that Gzeir Shava is stronger than a Hekesh. That's what it would seem. Says the Gemara, Loi, I don't have to say that they're arguing about when you have these two limudim, what's stronger. Rather, the Kula Alme, the Hekesh Adif. Everybody agrees that really a Hekesh is stronger. However, over here, when you have this Hekesh, there's an argument what we do with this Hekesh. Not necessarily is this Hekesh a contradiction to the Gzeir Shava in the first place. Because Va'amri L'cha Rabbanan, the Rabbanan will tell you, the point here is, whenever you have a Hekesh, you can go in both directions. The Hekesh could be from the later Parsha to the earlier Parsha, which is what we're assuming until now. But the Hekesh could be in the opposite direction as well. The Hekesh could be from the earlier Parsha to the later Parsha. That's what the Rabbanan hold. So V'amri L'cha Rabbanan over here, Tachtain hu de Gamar Me'elyain. It's the later Parsha, speaking about Asham Talui, that I learn out from the earlier Parsha that's speaking about the Me'ilos. Which detail do I learn out? I learn out L'Asham Bekesef Shkolim. The fact that a carbon asham has to be the behemoth that you buy for the carbon has to be at least in the value of 2 shkolim. That only says by the parsha of Asham Miles. Over there the Torah clearly says this lashon that has to be 2 shkolim, kesef shkolim. It doesn't say it by the later parsha by Asham Tali. That's what the Hekesh is for. Shaloi toimar. Again?
One from the other, no matter where it is.
Again, Hekesh?
Always learn from one from the other, no matter where it is.
What do you mean where it is?
You have a Hekesh, it could be in Vayikra and Hekesh, and the other part is in Bamidbar.
No, that's not Hekesh actually. That's called Gzeir Shava. That's called Gzeir Shava. Hekesh is only when you have 2 things that are right near each other, either 2 parshas right near each other, or in the same pasuk, 2 things that are mentioned in the same pasuk. That's Hekesh. And here we see in the Gemara a klal. Hekesh is stronger than Gzeir Shava. Everybody agrees. Machlokes here is which direction the Hekesh goes. Do we learn from the later parsha, which is Asham Tali, to the earlier parsha Asham Me'ilos, or are we learning from Asham Me'ilos to Asham Tali? Now the Gemara explains why do we need a Hekesh to teach regarding the value of the carbon, that just like by Asham Me'ilos it says that it's 2 kesef, so too that it's by Asham Tali. Why would I think otherwise? Because Shaloi Taimar, you shouldn't say the following. Since Asham Tali is a carbon being brought for an Aveda, which is a doubt whether he did Aveda B'chlal. So I would say maybe it shouldn't be more stringent than when he's bringing a carbon Chatas when he knows that he did Aveda B'Shegeg. Ma Vadoi Chatas Bas Danke, when a person brings a carbon for a Shegeg and he knows that he did Aveda. So over there you can bring a Bas Danke. Danke is a mod, it's the lowest value. If you can find a behemoth for cheap, even the lowest value, you can bring it. Doesn't matter, there's no share. Av Sveika Yosham Bar Danke, so too I should say regarding a Osham, which is for the same Aveda, but over here it's a Osham, which is a suffix, it's less. So I would say also it could be brought for that cheap price. So therefore it has to say, no, that for the Osham Talui, we learn from the Osham Me'ilos that it has to be at least 2 shkolim. That's the Chiddush here.
More than Chatas.
More than the Chatas. There's a famous Hezber from this. The Rebbe quotes this in a few places from Rabbeinu Yaina. He says when a person brings the Karban Chatas, he knows he did the Aveda, so he does tshuva. When he brings the Asham Talui, because he's always thinking to himself, I don't even know if I did this Aveda B'chlal. The Eibush says I'll bring the carbon, but he doesn't do tshuva b'leiv shalem. So therefore, let it cost him in his pocket a little more, so he'll take it more serious. Now, says the Gemara, Rabbi Akiva, from where does Rabbi Akiva know that we apply this price of 2 shkalim, not only by Asham Me'ilois, but we apply it by the other Me'ilois, by the other Ashamis that is as well. Where does he know this from? Nafkelei, Rabbi Kiva learns it out, Mizais Tairas Asham. The term of Tairas Asham teaches me Taira Achas L'chol Ashamais. That all Ashamais should have the same Taira, which is this detail, the price of the carbon, 2 shkalim. Says the Gemara, that's a good source according to the opinion Rashi brings in Masechta Menachos. There's an argument about this. The opinion that says there that we darshan this word tairas. But man, the less late tairas, the one that does not darshan that word meicha gomar. So where does he learn it out from? So we have another Gzeira Shabbos, says the Gemara. Gomar be'erkecha be'erkecha. It says in both places be'erkecha. By the carbon asham me'ilois, it says the word be'erkecha, but it actually doesn't only say the word be'erkecha. Be'erkecha means the value. It says be'erkecha, and it says exactly the amount. Be'erkecha shkalim. But then it also says be'erkecha by the asham talui. Over there it just says be'erkecha without the amount. But the 2 words be'erkecha, I learn out that has to be the kesef shkalim. Says the Gemara, okay, but this Gzeira Shava though does not mean I can learn to all the Ashamais, because the word Be'erkecha, it says by the Asham Me'ilois, by the Asham Tali, but it doesn't say by all the Ashamais. Asham Shivcha Charufa. There's another kind of Asham. There's actually 4 kinds of Ashamais. Another Asham is Shivcha Charufa. The like Sivbe Be'erkecha doesn't say that the word Be'erkecha. So Ma'ikele Meima. How do I know there that the carbon Asham by a Shivcha Charufa, which is a case where a person was mezaneh with a Shivcha Charufa, a maidservant in a certain situation? How do I know there that that carbon has to be the same price? Gamar ba'ayil ba'ayil. The carbon asham is brought from ba'ayil. It says both by them the word ba'ayil, so that teaches that it has to be this price of kesef shkalim. Okay, we return to the main subject we're discussing here, which is tzafin, that the karbanos have to be shechter and tzafin. So we brought the source regarding the carbon ayila. Now the question is, how do I know that the same applies to the carbon chatas? Chatas min Allah on the boy tzafin. How do I know that the chatas has to be shechter on the tzafin of the mizbeach? The chsiv, the pasuk says, v'shachat is a chatas b'mkayim ayila. That has to be shechter in the same place as an ayla. Clear? So the ayla isn't tzafin, so the chatas in the same place. Says the Gemara, ashkecha and shchita. So I have the source for the shchita of the carbon chatas. Kabbalah min Allah. How do I know that when you receive the blood of the carbon chatas, it should also be on the tzafin? Because the pasuk says, v'lokach hakayim midam chatas. In that same pasuk, it says that he should take, and the taking over here, right after v'shachal, it says v'lokach, and v'lokach here means that he takes it, the Kabbalah. So Rashi brings over, you learn out that v'lokach means that you receive it in the bowl, and that's in the same pasuk, just like the shchita on the tzafin side. Now there's a third detail here. Mikabel atzma minolan. How do we know that the kohen that's actually receiving the blood, he also has to be standing on the tzafin of the mizbech? He can't stand right at that line, that border between the tzafin and the darim and the azara, and stretch out his hand into the tzafin. On makra, so the pasuk says v'lokach. How do we dash on this word? Loy yikach. You can split the word into 2. He should take yourself into that tzafin side of the azara to receive the blood. It's an interesting drasha. The Gemara is soon going to say that not everybody agrees to this kind of a drasha. Says the Gemara, okay, so now ashkechon la mitzvah. We have one time the Torah says by the chatos that has to be on sofin, so that's the mitzvah lachatchila. La'akiv minayeh. Where do I have a second source regarding the chatos that has to be on the sofin? That this should be a must. So because krach rinik say there's another pasuk where it says v'shachat oisai b'makim ashiyishchet esa'ila. Yeah, this is actually a pasuk that it says by the carbon soyer, a goat that's brought as a chatos for a nasi, which is for a king. So it says there by the nasi that it should be shechted. It should be shechted in the same place as shechted ayla. Avatanya and a brayso we learned about this. Heichan ayla nishchata b'tzafayin. So where is the ayla shechted on the tzafin? As we saw before, the pasuk clearly says avzeh b'tzafayin. So the carbon of the nasi, chatos of the nasi, is also brought on the tzafin. So now the brayso asks in this v'chimikana tolamed. This pasuk of V'shachat Toisai, this is your source that the carbon of the nasi, the chatas of the nasi, has to be shechted on the tzafin. V'halei kvar ne'emar, but there's another pasuk where it says there by the nasi as well. B'mekayim asher tishchata oilot tishchata chatas. In the same place that you say, so it says this in the actually I think this is by the general chatas, not by the nasi. So it says clearly the pasuk that you shechted in the same place. Okay, as the oila. So why do I need this pasuk by the nasi? Lama yotza. Why does it say it again? The answer is lekvaya le'makom. They established a place that it's not only a mitzvah, but it's a must. If you don't shecht it there, it'll invalidate the carbon. That's the second source that you have that it must be shechted in this place. The Braisa continues. Shimlei shachta b'tzafayim pasal. If you don't shecht it there, it's going to be pasal. Okay, but now the Braisa says, you're saying that when it says this extra pasuk, it's a second pasuk telling me that it must be shechted on the tzafein. Maybe we should dash in this pasuk differently. Maybe we should dash in, the Gemara here now is going to be medayik. It says v'shachat oisai. So maybe that word oisai is actually coming to say that this extra pasuk is an exclusion. Not to double this halacha to shech b'tzafin, but it's coming to say an exclusion. Shezeh ton tzafin. That only this, not the side of the nasi, he has to, this carbon has to be shechted on tzafin. But ve'ein acher ton tzafin. But another carbon of chatos does not have to be shechted on tzafin. Maybe that's what the Isa is teaching. But then there's the pasuk where it says v'shachat es achatas b'mekayim ha'ila. There's another pasuk where it says that the chatas has to be shechted in the same place as the ha'ila. That is a pasuk that it says by the yachid as well, not only by a nasi. So therefore we know ze bana av l'chol chatois sheyu tunois tzafin. Therefore that is the source is bana av, that all karbanis of chatos must be in tzafin, because it doesn't say v'shachat, it says v'shachat es hachatos. Hachatos means that everything has to be shechted in tzafin. Okay, but now the Gemara says ashkechon sar nasi. So regarding the side of the nasi, I see that's bein la mitzvah, bein la akiv. I have two psukim there that it says that it must be in tzafin, so that's not only la mitzvah, but it's also la akiv. Shar chatois nami, regarding the other chatois as well, ashkechon la mitzvah. We have the pasuk that says la mitzvah that it should be in tzafin. Where's the second pasuk though? La'akiv min olon. Where do I have the second pasuk that the shchita of a regular karban chatas must be b'tzafin? The answer is because the chsiv b'kizba uksiv b'siyira. This halacha of tzafin, it says twice from the psukim that we just quoted. It says once the samach hasyada rosh chatas. It says again the samach hasyada rosh. Two psukim it says once by a lamb and once by a goat. And therefore it says from here we learn that by a regular karban chatas the shchita b'tzafin is ma'akiv. Okay, now though the Gemara goes back to a detail of the pasuk that we mentioned before, and here there'll be a long discussion about this. The pasuk that we quoted by the nasi. So what does the pasuk there say? V'shachat oisai b'makom asher yishchat esayla. So the Braisa suggested to say that the word oisai is a miyut. It's an exclusion. That only this pasuk has to be. Only this carbon has to be b'tzafin and not others. No, but the Gemara said no. We don't dash in the word oisai. It's coming to teach that it has to be b'tzafim without an exclusion. So now the Gemara wants to know, so what do we do with that word oisai? Says the Gemara, so ella oisai la meli, that oisai that it says by the carbon of the nasi, why is it saying oisai, that only it is shechted? What else is it coming to exclude? Answers the Gemara, it comes to exclude from this that it says in the Braisa, oisai b'tzafin, ve'ein sar nachshem b'tzafin, that the carbon of the nasi, he has to be shachtar on the tzafin. That's a king that did an aveda, and he has to bring a carbon chatos for an aveda that he did. That has to be shachtar b'tzafin. But the side of Nachshain, this is referring to Nachshain and all 12 Nesiim on the day when they inaugurated the Mishkan. They brought also a side as a carbon, and it was also brought as a chatos. That it's coming to say that is excluded. That does not have to be shechted b'tzafin. It was a chatos, but it wasn't a carbon chatos that was brought for any specific aveda. They brought it as a chatos for the inauguration of the Mishkan. So over there, that's excluded. Now, why do I need a special exclusion for that? Why would I think that the side of Nachshon should be brought b'tzafin? Because V'tanya, it says in the Braisa, it says in the pasuk, V'samach yodoi al reish hasoyer, that when you bring the goat by the nasi, I think this pasuk says, so so he has to lean his hands on it before he brings the carbon. What do I learn from there? Why does it say hasoyer? Why doesn't it say al reishai? Why does it mention again that it's a goat? Because l'rabba is sir Nachshon. Because it's saying not only this goat, another goat as well. That when Nachshon brought his sar, and by the inauguration of the Mishkan, he also had l'smicha, that the smicha has to be done. Devrei Rabbi Yehuda. However, Rab Shimon says that extra word sar is saying that when you bring a goat, when one serves of a desada and you have to bring a carbon there, a goat has to be brought l'smicha. That is coming to tell you the halacha of smicha regarding that. Okay, so now the Gemara says according to Rabbi Yehuda, this is the source why I would think that by the side of Nachshain, you should shecht the dafka on the tzafin. Why? Because I would think to say, just like you see, there's the extra word of soir that tells you that just like by the goat of the nasi has to be done with smiche. So too by the Sar Nachshan has to be done with smicha. So I would say maybe that would mean that we compare the two regarding this detail as well. That has to be shechted on the tzafin. So therefore, kamash malon. Therefore, I have that word oisai that it says by the side of the nasi to exclude the side of Nachshan that it does not have to be done on the tzafin. That's the pshat of this oisai. Okay, but the Gemara doesn't accept this. So Ravina asks on this, okay, you have a good answer according to Rabbi Yehuda that I have this hava minute to say by the side of Nachshin that it should be done in Safin, just like Smicha, that has to be done in Safin. However, Rab Shimon, how are you going to explain it according to Rab Shimon? According to Rab Shimon, there's no reason in the first place to compare the side of Nachshin to the side of the Nasi to say that it should be done with Safin. So why would I need that eyesight to exclude that the side of Nachshon should not have to be shechted b'tzafin? Amalei Mazut Rebbered Rav Tavi l'Ravina, Rav Mazut Rebbered Rav Tavi says to Ravina, he asks even furthermore. Rav Yehuda minicha. According to Rav Yehuda, do we have an explanation why we need the word eyesight to exclude the side of Nachshon? You're telling me that you find regarding the side of Nachshon that we compare it regarding smicha. So maybe we should compare it also regarding the fact that it has to be shachted on sofa. That's why I need the eyesight to exclude this. But why do you say that? Lamaydis Rabbi is Rabbi. For this that you see it's included, that I have the pasuk that says that the smicha is done by the side of Nachshon. For that it's included. Umaydi Lais Rabbi, Lais Rabbi. But if I have no pasuk to say that it should be done in sofa, why would I think that the side of Nachshon should be done in sofa and that I need this exclusion from the word eyesight? If you'll argue and say that if you wouldn't have had this exclusion of the pasuk, I would think that I just compare them because it's also a chatas. It said before in the lashon of the pasuk hachatas. I would just compare them just by the very fact that that the carbon of Nachshon was also a chatas. That's why I need the eyesight to exclude that that's also a chatas, but it does not have to be done in safin. Says the Gemara, but if that's what you're relying on, smicha gufe taisim binyanav. So then, for this that the smicha has to be done by Nachshon, I don't need this extra word soir that Rabbi Yehuda says in the Braisa that you darshan the extra word soir to say that by Nachshon the smicha has to be done for the soir of Nachshon. You could just learn it out from a binyanav, taisim binyanav. So you see from this, we don't learn out of binyanav. So the Gemara it comes back to its question. What do we learn out from that word oisai? That it says by the side of the nasi. You can't say that it's coming to exclude the side of Nachshon, because there would be no reason to think by the side of Nachshon that it should be b'tzafin. So what is it coming to exclude? So it says the Gemara Elo. The point over here is that we can't, this is all a continuation of the question. Elo midayrais loigamrinan. Since we're talking about the side of Nachshon, which was a Hirah Shah, this was a unique carbon that was brought at that time. It's not a regular carbon that's brought in later generations. So we don't learn out the binyanav. We can't compare from the Lashon Chatas that it says regarding all karbanas Chatas that is brought in all generations to the side of Nachshon. We don't learn out from this. So if so, over here as well, regarding Tzafain, there would be no svara b'chlal to say that you should learn out from the side of all Chatais to Nachshon. So the Isa is not coming to exclude the side of Nachshon. Therefore, the Gemara, Binyanav is when you find a certain rule, the Torah says, in a certain case, I just compare, logically. Even without having an extra word in the pasuk, I just logically compare them. But the Gemara is saying here, you can't say I just logically compare them. Why? Because Dairis and Nachshon is not the same thing. Dairis means a carbon that's brought in all generations. The carbon of Nachshon was a Hirah Shah. It was a unique carbon, a one-time thing, so I can't learn out from there. So the eyesight does not apply to this. So the Ella says the Gemara eyesight, but fine. What I learned from this is that when it comes to the carbon of the nasi of the nasi, this soir, the nasi, is how the shechita has to be done b'tzafin. The ein sheichet b'tzafin. The kohen that's shechting though does not have to be standing b'tzafin. He could be standing in darim, and he sticks out his hand with a long knife into the tzafin, and that's how he could shecht. The Gemara before was speaking about receiving the blood. regarding receiving the blood, it said that the kain that receives the blood has to also stand b'tzafim. But regarding the shechita, now it's saying that we learn out oisai, the animal has to be in tzafim, but the kain shechting does not have to be b'tzafim. That's what we learn out. Says the Gemara, and no, that detail also cannot be what the drasha of Isis is coming to teach. Because sheichit, the fact that the sheichit does not have to be in Safim with Rav Achia nafka. Rav Achia learns this out from a different drasha. The Tanya Rav Achia Imed, there's another pasuk where it says, V'shachat Isa yerech hamizvech tzafayna. Ma tamad loima, what is this pasuk coming to teach? Lefish mitzino Imed b'tzafin u'mekabel b'tzafain. Since I see that you stand in Tzafain and you receive the blood in Tzafain, and v'im amid b'danim v'kibel b'tzafain, pasul. However, if the blood of the behemoth it's in the tzafin, and the kain is standing in darim, so, and he stretches out his hand, that's going to be possible by receiving the blood. So yachalav zeh kain. I would think that the same is regarding the shechita, that just like the animal has to be in tzafin, the kain shechting has to also stand in the tzafin. So Talmud Laima Oisai, by the Shechita, the pasuk says Oisai b'tzafin v'ena sheichet b'tzafin, that the sheichet, the kain, does not have, or the kain, or really it's not only a kain that could shecht, whoever it is that's shechting does not have to be in the tzafin. So we're back to our question. This word of Oisai that it says by the carbon of the nasi, what are we excluding from that word? So the Gemara now tries a third point. Ella, says the Gemara, Oisai b'tzafin. The carbon of the nasi, the chatas that he brings, has to be in tzafayim, but ve'ein ben oif b'tzafayim. When you're doing the malika, here it's not even shchita, by the malika of the bird with the fingernail that you cut off its head, that does not have to be done in tzafim. The Tanya we learned in Abraisa, Yochel, why do I need a special pasuk? Here the Gemara explains. Why do I need this need for? Why would I think that the milika of the bird should be done b'tzafin? So the Braisa says, Yochel yehei ben oiv ton tzafin. I would think that a bird should also have to be done in the tzafin, and I would make the following kavachaymer. V'dino, kavachaymer is, Uma bet sayin shalek kavalek kayin, if when it comes to shechting any animal for a carbon, it does not have to be done by a kain. The shechita of an animal by a carbon could be done by anybody, by a zar as well. But nevertheless, kavalei tzafin. We're stringent and we set a place that it must be in the north of the azara. When it comes to the malika of a bird, it must be done by a kain. Most definitely, I would say that it must be done in the tzafain. That's why I would think that a bird must be done by tzafain, not tamad leima oisai. So we have this extra word oisai, that only by the side of the nasi to exclude that the bird does not have to be done on the tzafin. Okay, the Gemara asks on this exclusion as well, that you can't say that we need this oisei for this, because I would have thought otherwise that there's a kal v'chaimer, because that kal v'chaimer is not a good kal v'chaimer. Why not? I'll tell you as follows: Mal ben sayin shekin kavalei keli. But when it comes to shechting an animal, over here there's a stringency that you receive the blood in a keli. That's why it's done in Salfain. By a bird, there's no keli that's used to receive the blood. The kain takes the bird and squirts it or squeezes it out in the mizbeach. So therefore, this refutes this whole kal v'chaimer. So if so, we're back to the point that there's no reason to think in the first place that a bird should be shechted b'tzafin. The kal v'chaimer that we said is refuted. So then why do I need the word oisai to exclude a bird, that it does not have to be done b'tzafin? So what do we do with this oisai that it says by the sire of a nasi? The Gemara tries another pshat. Ella, says the Gemara, the pshat here is Oisai Batzafain ve'ein Pesach Batzafain. It's coming to say that this carbon of the nasi is shechted on the tzafin of the azara, but the carbon Pesach is not shechted on the tzafin. Now, why would I think that the carbon of the Pesach should be shechted b'tzafin? The Tanya is with Nabraisa. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says Yochel ye Pesach ton tzafin. I would think that the carbon Pesach must be shechted only in the north of the azara. Now, this would actually cause a little bit of a problem, because you could imagine the carbon Pesach that all of Klal Yisrael is bringing on the same day. If you're telling that everybody has to be squeezed into that one section of the Azara B'tzafain, especially according to the opinion that says that it's only literally north of the walls of the Mizbeach, that's a very small section where everybody has to squeeze into to shech the carbon.
It could be like 7.
It causes problems. Whatever, I'm just saying, so we say over here, V'dinhu, and I would say that the fact that it has to be in Safin is a kal v'chaimer. If when it comes to the carbon oila, where there is no set time when a carbon oila is brought, but nevertheless kavaleit safai, but there's a set place that has to be in the north. Pesach shekavalei is malish chitasai, but the carbon Pesach that there is a set time that has to be brought out of Pesach, and it is shekavaleit safai. And so if just like there's a set time, there should also be a set place that it should be in the north. And that's why Talmud Leima Oisai, the pasuk says it by the carbon of the Nasi, that Oisai only it has to be in sulfite, excluding the carbon Pesach. But the Gemara asks on this Kavachaimer that we just said regarding the Pesach, Ma lo Eila sheken kolel. You're saying that you would have thought that Pesach must be in learning from the Oila, but I can tell you Oila has a stringency. And with that, it has to be completely burnt on the Mizbeach. There's no such stringency by the Pesach, so this whole Kavachaimer doesn't exist. So what do I need this exclusion for? Says the Gemara, okay, you can't learn it from Oila, but michatos. I would have made a Kavachaimer from chatos. If chatos must be b'tzalfain, and I would say that chatos doesn't have a set time, but it has a set place. The Pesach that has a set time should have a set place. But the Gemara says you can't learn that Kavachaimer from chatos either. Malachata shekem mechaperes. Kar mechaperes is brought as a kapara. Maybe that's why it's required to be b'tzalfain. The Pesach is not for a kapara. Or again, let's read shekem mechaperes al chai v'krisis. It's a kapara for kares, which does not apply to Pesach. Says the Gemara, okay, you wouldn't learn this kavachayim from chatos, but me asham. I would think to learn a kavachayim from the carbon asham, that if asham has to be in sulfain, that so to the carbon Pesach should have to be in sulfain. Says the Gemara, but I can't learn from asham either. Mala asham, shekachim. Asham is a higher status of a carbon. It's a kachim. The carbon Pesach is only kachim kalim. So why would I think to learn out from there that it should have to be b'tzalfain? And the Gemara goes on to say, mikula nami. If you would say, maybe I should learn out Pesach from all three together, from the Oila, Chatos, and the Asham, that so too the Pesach should be b'tzalfain. But you wouldn't say that because she can't kachim. All three of them have to be on b'tzalfain, but they're all three kachim. So how would I think to learn out the Pesach from there? So if I would have no source to think even that carbon Pesach should be done b'tzalfain, so why are you saying that this exclusion of Oisai is coming to exclude the Pesach? It's pashut that Pesach does not have to be b'tzalfain. There's no reason to think that it should be. So therefore the Gemara goes back, la'olam k'da'amara me'ikare, that Oisai b'tzalfain ve'ein sheichet b'tzalfain. That the word Oisai is coming to exclude that the animal that you're shechting has to be in the north, and the one that's shechting, he does not have to be in the north. The Kashilach, before the Gemara asked him that, but that Rav Achye Nafkilon, that we already have a different source for this. That Rav Achye brought from the pasuk where it says V'shachat Oisai Yerach HaMizbeach Tzafayna, and we learned from that Oisai, and we don't need this word Oisai here. It says the Gemara, Lav Lemut Sheichet B'Tzafen. It's over there. It's again. So the point of this Oisai that we're learning out of here, this exclusion, you're right. It's not coming to learn out just this halacha itself, that the sheichet does not have to be b'tzalfin. That I know already from Rav Achya. What we're learning out from this is another point that comes out from this. Ella, we learn out as follows: Ein sheichet b'tzalfin. It says in the Torah that Oisai, the animal, has to be b'tzalfin, which excludes the sheichet. The sheichet does not have to be b'tzalfin. But now I go a step further. Avol mekabel b'tzalfin. However, the one that receives the blood does have to be b'tzalfin. Since I see the miyut of Oisai only regarding shchita, that only by the shchita do I make this distinction, that the animal has to be b'tzalfin, but the kain does not have to be b'tzalfin, and I have that distinction already once that Rav Achya learned that. Now I have it a second time to teach me that distinction is only regarding shchita, but when it comes to receiving the blood, even the kain that receives the blood, not only the animal, but even the kain that receives the blood should be b'tzalfin. Oh, but the Gemara asks on that, Mekabel, the fact that the kain that receives the blood has to be on the tzafein. Melokach, we learned it out from the word lokach. And Amar Aleph, the Gemara says that you take that word lokach and you split it into two. Loi yikach, that he should take himself to the tzafein. That's what we learned that already before. So why are we learning it out from here that the kain receiving the blood has to be b'tzafein? Says the Gemara, the lokach again. Melokach v'lokach nafkele, or v'lo yikach. That's the way you read the Gemara here. That you take that word lokach and you split it into two. Lo yikach nafka. That's what you learn out. Says the Gemara, lokach v'lokach le mashmale. That according to this opinion, he doesn't hold to that drasha. That this drasha to split the word into two, lo yikach instead of v'lokach, he doesn't hold to that drasha. Therefore, it's this, which is the source, that the shchita, not only the animal has to be b'tzalfin, the kain also has to be b'tzalfin, but by the Kabbalah, the animal has to be b'tzalfin, and the kain also has to be b'tzalfin. That's what we learn out from this Oisai.